couple minutes ago. I wasn't quite all set up, and I didn't realize I was actually live. But I realize it now. So my apologies. I hope you're all doing well today. It's been a big day. It's been a big news day so far with the Supreme Court. Obviously, that's where we're going to start today. There's some news about Iran too, and the village idiot Donald Trump. But let's start with the Supreme Court. Let me just bring up the live streams first. Donald Trump, okay. Supreme Court. Okay, and my apologies. I'm a little later today than I usually am with my live streams. And my apologies. I'm a little. Well, I mean, I'm a lot later today than I usually am with my live streams, but I think the live streams will be a little bit weird for a while until I kind of get. Why is Twitch showing me? Am I offline on Twitch? What's going on here, Twitch? Let's get this straightened out, Twitch. All right. Twitch is not showing online. Let me just try it one more time, and then we'll kind of get to our business here. Okay, so we're running Twitch again, and let's see if we have better luck this time. There we go, Twitch. Oh, no. It's saying I'm offline. I don't know, let's see here. What are you doing, Twitch? Are you offline? Are you online? Well, it kind of looks like a little bit of both. If you're out there on Twitch and you can kind of see what's going on, that's awesome. Oh, wait, here we go. Twitch is okay now. I don't think it was Twitch, my friends. I think it was Mitch. I was mistaken, or I was Mitch taken. Oh, the comedy never stops here at Xenocracy. Not really. All right, we're online everywhere. So here's the deal. Supreme Court had some big decisions today. Let me preface this by saying none of the decisions today, in my opinion, were great. One decision was, thank God. It was a deep breath taken with some not so vague frustration and disappointment from my perspective on the fact that it was a 6-3 or 5-4 decision, depending on what opinion you are able to glean from the opinions. But it was still the right decision. It was still a good decision. Birthright citizenship is safe. And, that's important. That's extraordinarily important. But I'm going to explain to you in a moment why it's cause for relief and inspiration in my mind that the court decided the way it decided, and why it is an absolutely devastating loss for the village idiot Donald Trump politically and personally. So I'm going to kind of dive into that, but at the same time, as I talked about yesterday or Monday with the Supreme Court decisions, some of the Supreme Court decisions, it's not like great, right? The situation isn't great. And then you had the other two decisions today that did not go, as far as I'm concerned, the way I would have liked to see them go. And why I don't think either of them are the absolute worst decisions they could have been in their respective areas. I know that's a little cryptic, but should have been 9-0, Beth, but I didn't expect that. You're talking about, and I think that's a good segue into the first case, because I'm sure you're talking about the birthright decision. I never, in my wildest imagination, I would have been stunned if it was a 9-0 decision. I think it's important to remember when we're talking about this court that Justice Alito is an angry old white man who is as close to a white nationalist as one could be without being a white nationalist, or he just is a white nationalist. Remember when his wife, supposedly his wife, he blamed his wife, hung a flag from their multi-million-dollar beach home that was in support of the January 6th insurrectionists, the domestic terrorists, the animals that stormed the Capitol. Remember that? So when that's, and that, I don't think that, look, if I were a Supreme Court justice and my wife opted to do that, first of all, it would be a big dilemma for our marriage in general, because that would be disgusting to me. And that would create a rift in our marriage. And I certainly can't tell my wife what to do. I would argue how abhorrent it was if my wife chose to do that. I wouldn't want that representative of my home, but at the same time, my home is also my wife's home. So neither one of us have the power to say, you can't, I'm not my wife's Lord and Master, nor is she mine. But I would have told my wife, this is disgusting. We have a problem personally, because this is abhorrent to me, and I don't know if we're going to be able to work through that. Secondly, I would have told her, and I would have done it, that I'm immediately going to go to the press, and I'm going to let them know that there is a disagreement in our household about this disgraceful flag that you're choosing to fly, and that it has nothing to do with me. Because as a public servant, as supposedly an unbiased member of the court, the country cannot afford to have me appear before it as an insurrectionist or a white nationalist, or worse. So that's what I would have done. And because Alito didn't do that, I'm led to conclude that he was in on it, that he approved of it, that it was his opinion as well as hers, and they agreed mutually because of her position versus his position that she would supposedly try to take the fall. But my point is, with a white nationalist in Supreme Court, I don't expect he's capable anymore of coming out on the right side of any decision that isn't that of white nationalism, that isn't ideological. I don't think the law matters to him anymore. And I wish those who confirmed him, wouldn't have been in the game of rubber stamp confirmations way back then, because I imagine, I don't know, hate to be an armchair quarterback after the fact, but I imagine this could have been fleshed out with a efficient confirmation hearing, which hopefully is something we'll get back to someday on both sides of the aisle. Clarence Thomas is also a white nationalist. There is no reason anymore to think that a white nationalist has to be white. We've seen too many examples of people of color. We've seen examples of people who are black basically operating like white nationalists. Look at Congressman Donaldson. It's basically an ass-kissing, Trump-loving white nationalist. Then you juxtapose him against, say, Senator Tim Scott, South Carolina. Scott, I don't believe, is a white nationalist. I think he's a once principled Republican senator who happens to be black, who just became a typical GOP Trumpian chicken shit ass kisser like most of everybody else in the Senate. But my point is that you can be a person of color and you can be a white nationalist. That's no longer mutually exclusive. So I never expected for a minute, I don't expect ever, no matter how obvious the case is, that you're going to have Alito or Thomas coming out on the right side of any case. So you automatically, at best, have a 7-2 decision on, whether or not, and if we ever get there, God forbid, whether or not the U.S., should reconsider slavery. I truly, truly believe that's where we are. Those may disagree with me, and I welcome those disagreements because I'd like to be wrong about that. But I expected this not to be so close. A potential 5-4, 6-3 decision. And the reason it's 5-4 or 6-3 is because Kavanaugh is like iffy. Nobody really knows. He's unclear in his opinion where he really stands on this. Kavanaugh's argument was that basically it wasn't that the 14th Amendment, which has pretty clear information. Anyone born in the United States is a citizen. That's basically paraphrasing what the Fourth Amendment says. There is no interpretation. I've had folks on Facebook arguing with me, who are against birthright citizenship. I've had them debating with me the spirit, the intention of the original amendment and how that spirit doesn't jive with what the amendment means now, arguing that when the law was originally passed, when the amendment was added, that people really didn't plan for Mexicans to come in, because they'll basically refer to everyone in Central America and South America as Mexicans, to have babies, and to leave, right? Or Chinese people to come in and have babies and take them back to China, right? That's the argument. And I don't give a shit. Couldn't care less, to be perfectly frank with you, because these same people will make the argument, well, the Second Amendment, which basically says the U.S. has to have a well-armed, regulated militia, somehow has been interpreted to mean that everybody, no matter how crazy, no matter how dangerous, no matter how stupid, no matter how likely they are to go and blow up a school, they should get a gun. And not only should they get a gun, but they should get any kind of gun they want, even one that was designed for the military to kill lots of people. So if you're going to argue, because that's not what the intention of the simple text of the Second Amendment could possibly mean when they passed it, right? It really fucking meant that citizens are entitled to have a well-armed militia, just in case the government gets out of hand so we don't get a fucking king again, right? Isn't that what it meant? So if you're going to be a contextualist on Facebook with me, then you need to be that way across the board, right? You can't tell me, you can't expect me to give a shit about your feelings on the matter if the Second Amendment, it needs to be, of course they meant what they meant then, but this is what it means now. And now it means everybody gets a gun because we have all these guns and everybody can have them, which is not what the text says. But you can not be, you can defy the argument when it comes to the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship, where it's kind of like, no, this is not why they passed it. This is not why they passed it. What was it, 1835? Whenever. I don't remember the year it was passed. But this is not why they passed it, Mitch. It's not what they meant. These Chinese people coming in here and having babies, and those brown babies. And if you saw my post from earlier today on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, you saw that I just kind of came out and said what I felt, that opposition to birthright citizenship is really just straight up racism. It's just the opposition argument is that a principle has been defiled, and the principle is that you can't come to the United States, have a baby, and that baby's a citizen, and then leave the United States and take that baby with you back to China, and then give that baby all the rights of a citizen, but they are loyal to the Chinese government. Or brown people coming over from the southern border can't just come here illegally and have a baby when they didn't go through the immigration process, and that baby doesn't get to be a citizen just because they did it. Guess what? They fucking do. They do. And that argument, as I said in my post earlier today, is just because you're a fucking racist. That's all it is. There's no baby that was ever born here in the United States under the birthright citizenship that has ever affected anyone. Obviously, I'm generalizing here. But for the most part, that has ever affected anyone in any way, manner, shape, or form who is a citizen, who is a natural-born citizen. There is no birthright citizenship baby that has ever made any American person's life worse. Not when it comes to jobs, not when it comes to danger of the brown people, not when it comes to anything. Of course, historically, statistically, I'm sure you'll find a case. I'm using this generalization, where basically I'm saying no birthright, no baby that was ever born and got citizenship through birthright has ever committed a crime. Obviously, I'm generalizing, right? But you get the point. It's metaphorical, right, to a certain extent. And it's meant to be, my words are meant to stir some emotion in those who support birthright citizenship, because what it just downright means is you're a racist. It really just is. And you should own that. And then maybe you could move past it. The bottom line is there is no principle that you give a shit about that has been affected by birthright citizenship, that has been defiled, that has been denied. It's just that, as I think with so many, the core of so much racism is that your own life sucks. And you don't want to take the personal responsibility to fix it. So you become a victim of the other. You become a victim of the people of color, the people who are taking your jobs or putting you in terrible danger because you don't own your own self-responsibility. Your kids are miserable. You're miserable. Your spouse hates you. Your job sucks. You're broke. It's your fucking fault. It's not the baby. It's not the baby. And it's certainly not marginalized communities who have actual repression, generations worth of institutional repression heaped upon them. It's certainly not the Black community who is literally going through a not even a slow-moving, a quick-moving repressive effort. Black America is losing its right to vote in the South. It's losing, in many instances, in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. Black American citizens are, in addition to trying to repress their vote, this particular Supreme Court and racist supermajority legislatures in the South have just removed their representation from the House of Representatives. Gone. Done. Rewrote the maps. Over with. Right? It's all part of the same racist thing, plan, effort. And it just needs to be called out for what it is. We don't need to dance around this. The birthright citizenship thing was something Trump wanted because he's a racist imbecile. And they took non-racist or racist non-imbeciles around him, or lesser imbeciles like Stephen Miller. And they took lesser imbeciles like Solicitor General Sawyer, who's not an imbecile, probably a racist, or just willing to support and enable them. And they made fucking ridiculous legal arguments. And they've been doing it forever. But especially it's been on steroids. It's been legal arguments on steroids since the Village Idiot's second term began. And today, at least, the Supreme Court said no. And before I talk about the bad part of this, which is that the Supreme Court even took it up as a case, that the Supreme Court even was this close to potentially overturning birthright citizenship. Before I take that on, I'm sure you guys already know. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know here, but I just want to kind of refresh in your mind where this was very likely going, because the media isn't covering this now, right? They're just covering the win because they basically are only capable of covering W's and L's. Independent media can cover more, right? So they're just covering the win for Democrats, the loss for the idiot. But this was never, I don't believe, going to end with birthright citizenship, right? If Gorsuch and Alito and Clarence Thomas and maybe Kavanaugh and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and all the racist creeps on X and all of those who cling to this principle that they use to cover their racism, this principle about America's for Americans, right? If all those people got their wish and succeeded today with birthright citizenship being overturned, aside from the fact that, once again, decades and decades, generations of precedent would be just gone, it would have been the beginning of a cleansing, of what I truly believe would be an ethnic cleansing effort here in the United States. It would have started, obviously, with new babies born, right? Which could be up to, I had an argument with somebody on Facebook today, so I had to fact check the numbers, and it looks like the numbers are anywhere from about 220,000 to 250,000 or something like that, babies born every year who benefit from birthright citizenship. So it would have been those kids, right? But then you don't think that the White House would have just interpreted no matter what the opinion was, any way they wanted, right? And just the natural next part of it would have been beginning the process of denaturalization for marginalized groups. So, right, it wouldn't be white people who the Village Idiot welcomed from South Africa, right, who are all going to have, whoever has babies, they're going to be citizens now, right? It wouldn't be them. And maybe even not other white people, right? But I'm sure illegal immigrants from Central and South America, the effort would have been, they would have taken the ruling and they would have spun it in such a way that they would have decided, whether it said so or not, that it meant that they could denaturalize a whole bunch of children who say in the last 2 years, I'm just making something up, right? I'm sure they had a plan for this, who had citizenship, right? And then it would be a slippery slope, right? Because again, these idiots believe in the Great Replacement theory. Stephen Miller, the Village Idiot, is too dumb to understand the Great Replacement theory, but I'm sure at some level he believes in it. A lot of these fucking whack jobs in the White House believe in. I'm sure drunken Pete Hegseth believes in it. Not that he has anything to do with this part, but the Great Replacement theory is this terrible fear that white Americans have. That I mean, it's all over the world now. That the invading people of color, the brown people who are invading, will eventually be so there'll be so many of them here that they'll take over, and the white people will lose control, and the Great Replacement will come in. And a lot of these racists who used to be, snakes that used to slither under rocks because it wasn't within the Republican Party mainstream appropriate, they've all slithered out. Now that I believe, again, for whatever that's worth, I believe that it's just mainstream Republican politics now to Great Replacement theory and white nationalism and borderline Nazism with borderline tolerance of Jews who toe the party line, right? But I believe that's the Republican ideology right now, 100%. So we would have, I truly believe that if the Supreme Court, which I think Alito and Clarence Thomas would have wanted, and that's just an opinion, that's not facts, that's not fake news, it's just my opinion. I believe it would have been the beginning of an effort to ethnically cleanse the United States of America, starting with babies who will be born, quickly going to babies who might be born, quickly going to babies who were born, quickly going to children who were born, quickly finding its way back to teenagers and young adults who were born, quickly finding its way back to parents. And I think they would have tried a multi-year process to denaturalize, any way they could do it, anyone who they deemed too brown and too unacceptable that was a threat to their white power base, because they are a white nationalist cabal that is running Donald Trump, that is in essence running the country. And I think the most significant outcome of today's Supreme Court decision is that this stopped that in its tracks. Even with Kavanaugh's weebly wobbly, can't decide, too afraid to take a side position on this, right? This stopped that in its tracks. Birthright citizenship is safe. I don't even see how the Republicans now can take another bite at the apple. They might try, but I don't. I guess legal experts would be better suited to answer that question clearly than I do. But by making this decision, I think we were saved from a very, very dangerous and ugly future for the next 2.5 years or 2.25 years. And, I'm sorry, just distracted because my son just walked in the house. Yeah, and now he's telling the dog not to run out the door. So if you hear somebody yelling, stay in the background, that's what you're hearing. So I think we dodged an ethnic cleansing bullet. I think we would have looked like, without the extreme violence, they would have tried to have done it politically, although ICE is capable of extreme violence. It would have looked like, we know Donald Trump is capable of it because he wanted to remove all the Palestinians from Gaza. I'm sorry, guys, hold on. Oh, great. All right. My son just got some programming project in the mail that he's been like desperately waiting for. So he's pretty jazzed up. That's what he was just showing me. Computer coding. So, I think we would have been facing, let me just close the door. Oh, I can't reach the door. So, I mean, I think we know Trump is good with ethnic cleansing because he wanted to do it in Gaza. Netanyahu was talking about doing it with them, cleansing all those Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, sending them to wherever, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, if the Saudis would take them, any country that, would take them, and then taking the property for, Trump Resorts beachfront property, right? So he's certainly capable of it. And he is the useful idiot for the slightly smarter lunatics that are around him. So I have no doubt in my mind that that's where we were heading. And now we're not. And that's really good. Lacey, if they want to change the birthright citizenship, they need to pass a constitutional amendment, which wouldn't pass. And they know that. And you're 100% right. They're 100% right. Also, Lacey, hey, 305 all day. It's good to see you too. I hope you're doing well. It would have been so bad if they ruled the other way on birthright citizenship. It would have felt like Nazi Germany. The Trump administration would have gone after people's brown kids. Ugh. Thank God they ruled the other way. Absolutely. Again, ethnic cleansing. Hitler tried to use straight up murder, right, to cleanse Europe, right? And did. He did it. You don't think Donald Trump is capable of that? Thank God he's an idiot. If there's any point to my, as I say so frequently, if there's any point to all of my content, it's to remind you how fortunate we are that the village idiot is a bumbling idiot, because he is a psychopath. He is a sociopath like Hitler. The psychologist and psychiatrist created the diagnosis of malignant narcissism to try to explain psychologically Hitler, right? That's why this existed. This severe mental illness, this personality disorder existed, but it wasn't formally in the diagnostic manual, right? So they had to kind of study the personality and create this, right? So Donald Trump has it, but he's an idiot too. Thank God he's an idiot. And he was an idiot before his cognitive decline. He was always an idiot. I don't know if he was an idiot from birth, but grew up an idiot, right? From what I know of his adult life, since I've been paying attention, he's always been an idiot. So thank God. And had they ruled the other way, Lacey, I agree with you. It would have been a nightmare, unthinkable nightmare. So now so that's the good part. Now the closeness of this outcome is devastating. Gorsuch, this was the bone you had to throw to Donald Trump. You're not a white nationalist. Kavanaugh, you're going to both sides this. You can't decide, Justice Kavanaugh, what side you're on this. Such an obvious thing. Clear text, even if you were an originalist, whatever you call yourself. Seriously? But you're going to play it safe and both sides it? I mean, the only possible pass you could give Kavanaugh is maybe he loves beer. Remember that? I love beer. I love beer. I love beer. Lindsey Graham, give me a hug. Remember during his confirmation hearings when the baby broke down crying? It was too much for him. He was having such a hard time. Did little too much about Kavanaugh, and he told us that he likes beer. I like beer so much. Remember that? Well, you know what? Maybe when he was writing his opinion, his love of beer he engaged in that love of beer while he was writing the opinions and he was drunk. Maybe I could understand how you'd both sides it when you weren't thinking clearly. I don't know what to think of. I don't know. And I don't know what to think of Gorsuch. I really don't know what to think of him. He's made some reasons decisions, not today, about the LGBTQ community. He's not a dumb man. He doesn't seem evil. So I don't know. I don't know where to stand on Justice Gorsuch. I don't know with this particular decision, which was so clear. And he had asked pointed and direct. I haven't read. I don't know if he contributed to the dissenting opinion. I'll have to see. I don't know. I just don't know. I have to. I don't know. Guess it doesn't matter. And with Kavanaugh's perspective, is he said that Trump's executive order didn't defy the 14th Amendment, which it obviously did. I mean, if I read this National Geographic, right? I read the mystery of a Byzantine shipwreck, right? And then somebody decides that they want that to be the mystery of a Viking shipwreck, right? It's not what it says. And in 50 or 100 years, when somebody has this same copy and somebody's arguing, well, that really meant the mystery of a Byzantine shipwreck. What the author was thinking was really about the Vikings. It wasn't the Byzantines or whoever, right? So the Byzantines aren't a thing. No, it meant that. That's what it meant, right? So, but Kavanaugh said it didn't mean that. It didn't offend that amendment. But what it did do is there was this other law, and it contradicted this other federal law, and therefore he ruled that way. But he kind of stuck out this middle ground where it was it wasn't really, and Congress could just pass a new law. And it's a lot easier to pass a law than it is to change it. And to amend an amendment takes 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And, and I believe in agreement by the president. I know it's 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. So it's next to impossible. And the majority said no. You can't just overturn the 14th Amendment without Congress doing it the right way. And Gorsuch, Kavanaugh's saying, well, not really. It's just, this is not about the amendment. The amendment's fine, but it's really just about legislation. And with this particular federal law, if Congress just changes it or overturns it, we're fine. Which that can't happen anyway. There's not with this divided Congress. We don't have to worry about it unless unless John Thune gives into the villagity of Donald Trump and gets rid of the filibuster. And if he does get rid of the filibuster, get ready, because birthright citizenship will disappear. But I don't expect that to happen. So that's one case. The other two cases, the transgender athletes case, right? In a nutshell, if I understand the ruling, basically what it means is that the states that choose to ban transgender athletes from competing in their in a gender-based category in sports that doesn't match their biological birth sex are the states can do that. They can ban them. It didn't seem, at least from what I haven't read the ruling. I haven't had a chance today. I've been too busy, but I've heard about it. It didn't sound like it's saying to, say, blue states that Maine, for example, that you have to do this. You have to ban, transgender athletes from being able to participate in the sport based on the sex they identified with. So it didn't say that, but the states that chose to ban it, they're still allowed. And I don't agree with the decision, but if you look at where America is right now, uh, you have majorities that are not going to be on my progressive side of this issue, like significant majority that are not in agreement, that are in agreement with the Trump administration on this issue. And that's just life. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but that's life. That's where America is. It's going to take, God willing, not too long, but I would expect a decade or more to educate America about the transgender community and what that community actually is, and that these are people, and they're normal people. America's not there. That being said, this was not the most catastrophic decision. Yeah, buddy, what's it? Yeah, I'll be done in like 10 minutes or less. Okay. Can I watch your show while you're going? Yeah, you can. I'm sorry, guys. My son's home. What am I going to do? It's going to be a long summer. So this is not the most catastrophic decision that the Supreme Court has made yet when it comes to the transgender community, because they've already made some catastrophic decisions that were far more egregious than this. Because one, in terms of the sheer number of transgender athletes who actively are choosing, at least publicly, to compete in the gender that they identify with, it's not a huge number. It's a fairly small number in the grand scheme of things. And it's not the biggest issue in the transgender community. I would argue that this is just another gut punch to that community that's been dehumanized by the village idiot Donald Trump and bigoted, cowardly, homophobic Republicans, especially Republican men in the House and the Senate, who some of whom spend a lot of time secretly on Grindr hooking up at Republican conventions with other boys, but come out very strongly against all sorts of gay rights issues because they are so repressed and driven with guilt, and ashamed of who they really are. But I would argue that the Supreme Court decision which Judge Gorsuch actually, was on the right side of history for. The Supreme Court decision that denied transgender employees basic rights in the workplace. I fact check me on it. I'm pretty sure this was where Gorsuch was like, "What the fuck? They should have rights in the workplace." I hope I'm not screwing this up. I didn't fact check myself and review this before I came on, so please fact check me and let me know if I'm incorrect about this. I should have done a better job checking before I brought this up. I just didn't know I was going here until now. That was a devastating decision. The decision to, in many instances, allow states to ban affirming care for transgender children, which is tantamount to torture. What they argued that the argument was that Democrats are pushing to mutilate children who shouldn't know any better. And the reality with the medical community, the American Medical Association, the mainstream medical community, people of decency, statisticians who just deal in data, they've ascertained that we've, transgender kids who choose and need gender affirming care don't want to kill themselves anymore. And suicide rates for those who are able to receive it have gone down exponentially. So allowing states to deny this life-saving medical care, that's been catastrophic, I think. So, and if you look at the LGBTQ community as a whole, I just lost my train of thought. There was another decision that was on my mind as I was talking, but sometimes my mind and my mouth don't work together at the same time, and then I think the next thought and I forget the thought that I was thinking about. I'm sure it'll come back to me. There was one other case that I wanted to. Oh yes, for the I remember it now. It usually comes back to me. Allowing for the legalization again of what's that therapy? I can't remember the name of the type of therapy. The therapy where they try to teach kids who are gay that they're not gay. Conversion therapy, right? Which is basically it's in essence a religious effort, right? It strikes me as a form of Christianized psychobabble that is designed to brainwash gay kids into becoming unaccepted gay kids into becoming semi-accepted pretend straight kids. Allowing that is child abuse. So where these fake Christians who made the argument that transgender reaffirming care is mutilation of children, they are abusing children, like Beth is saying, child abuse, it's abuse. They are actually the ones mutilating children's minds, their bodies, their spirits, their hearts by trying to brainwash them out of who they really are. And they can go fuck themselves. And the Supreme Court can go fuck itself. Because we're also going to see suicide rates. We've seen it. We'll see suicide rates go up again. So today's decision, as egregious as I think it was, I don't think we knew it would come out this way. We knew how the Supreme Court was going to 6-3 decision. We knew what they were going to do with this. With the trans sports decision, but it is not. It is not the. These are the continuing gut punches that incredibly insecure white Christian people want to use to break trans people, so that the white Christian straight people and the white Christian closeted gay people want to feel a little bit better about themselves, want to feel a little tougher, stronger, but it has nothing to do with gay people. Jordan, how would they feel if we made straight people go to conversion therapy because we think they're going to hell and need to face their gayness? It's insane. It's crazy. I couldn't agree with you more. I actually had that experience as an undergraduate when I first went to NYU. And we were kids, and it was minor, right? But when I went to NYU, I transferred from Drexel University because I always wanted to go to school in New York. So I went to New York University. And my first year, I lived in basically a 6-person dorm suite. So you had 3 rooms and 2 people to each room. And my roommate, my first roommate was gay. And he would argue, we would have these kind of debates, once we got to know each other a little bit, because he believed that all men were born gay and taught to be straight. Now, I don't believe that. I didn't believe that then either. But I remember, again, as kids, us having, he and I, we were fast friends, but I remember having these heated debates with him about that. And I just wonder, Jordan, when you make your comment here, I'd love to go back and, we never stayed in touch, even just after that year. We were just, friends for that year, and then that was it. We kind of, we never stayed in touch. But I would love to meet up with him again and be like, remember that argument we used to debate, we used to fight about twice a week? I'd like to re-up that argument with you today, but not to have it with you, to stand with you and make that argument to these evangelicals who want to engage in conversion therapy. So that's case number 2. It's almost 3:00. I got to wrap in just a moment. The third case is probably the one you may or may not have been paying attention to, and it's perfectly understandable with all the news. That's the political contribution case, and basically, it's not really. My understanding of the case is it's not. It's a little technical. Citizens United basically allowed for unlimited contributions to political candidates through super PACs, right? So there's still a limit, right? If I want to, and that was a case from years ago, right? The Supreme Court decided that, and they'd opened the floodgates for all this dark money in politics. So if I want to donate to a political candidate personally, and this is still the case, the maximum amount of money I can give to that candidate is $2,500, period. $2,500, and that's still the case across the board. But these political action committees now can be created, these super PACs, that's why we have them, and Democrats and Republicans have them. Democrats just haven't gotten as good at this, and they need to get better at this. But now, if I want to support a candidate and I want to give $1 million to that candidate, I have to do it through a super PAC, and I can do it anonymously, or I can do it not anonymously, and that super PAC does not have to disclose who its donors are. And then that super PAC can subsequently circumvent the law and, give as much money as it wants. That's how Elon Musk was able to basically donate, what was it? Why would he donate like $100 million to the Idiot's campaign or something in 2024? Whatever it was, right? That's how you do it. Because he couldn't donate $100 million to the idiot directly because he could only donate $2,500. But through the super PAC that he created, he could put as much money as he wanted in, and all that was used. The rules are the campaign is not allowed to coordinate directly with the super PAC. Now, I don't believe the Supreme Court decision has anything to do with that. I don't think it affects that. I don't think. Fact check me on it, but I don't think so. But I think what this Supreme Court decision says is that political organizations, right, were only politically affiliated organizations like the DNC and the RNC. There was only so much, there were caps on the amount of money that they could field to a particular candidate at a particular level, right? So the DNC, somebody running for president would have a cap on how much it could give to whoever's running, right, for president. Or if, say, the whatever fund Hakeem Jeffries uses for his fundraising to be able to give to particular Democratic House candidates, there's a cap that he has to follow. And I think if I understand this ruling, and again, I have to take it with a grain of salt. I might be completely screwing this up. I have to look at it closer. I just haven't had a chance yet today. But I think that what this is saying is that cap doesn't exist anymore. There's no more cap. Politically affiliated organizations can give any amount they want to any candidate for any office. At least that's what I think it says. And the reason that short-sighted Republicans chose that to have that case is right now strategically these individual, although Democrats are outraising Republicans 2-1 or more in many, many cases, because Trump is so bad and because we have so many great candidates right now, all in all, thanks to Elon Musk and these other billionaire creeps, the Republicans are these Republican the RNC, these other RN Republican congressional organizations, whatever, they're better funded now, so they can throw more money into these 2026 congressional races as long as they're allowed, right? And it's not going to help them. They're still going to lose. And they're going to lose big. And I hope they flood the zone with everything they have. I'm happy to watch them lose money as they get clobbered in this election, because no amount of money can buy their way out of Donald Trump and affiliation to that idiot. So on the one hand, I don't think it's an end of the world scenario at all. I think it just makes the current situation worse in terms of, unlimited money in politics, untraceable money, corruption in the political, in the marketing that is political campaigns, right? But at the same time, I think it's becoming less and less valuable because, ad buys on TV are becoming less and less useful anyway. And that's where so much of this money is going, right? So, but it's an awful decision. And obviously the fact that it was a 6-3 decision, again, is suggestive of the fact that this particular Supreme Court either just doesn't believe that this is causing rampant corruption, or they don't care, or they just want that, right? Because it benefits Republicans right now, and they are a political court at this point. But I have a different take on it. I don't feel great about it, but this is my take on it. First of all, I don't think it has any, as I said, I don't think it has any effect on the midterms at all. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at a candidate. New York learned that, when Republicans tried to throw a shit ton of money at Cuomo, and it just fell apart, and Mamdani, won, right? So, and that was New York, right? So it does not matter, and it doesn't matter how much money, we've seen election after election since the Village Idiot's been inaugurated, where tons of money were thrown at Republicans, and they either lost in deep red states, or Democrats became competitive in places where they shouldn't have been. And Democrats always, I can't think of a single instance where they haven't held on to a seat since the idiot became president. I can't think of a single incident. If there is one, tell me, because I can't think of even one, where they've actually lost a seat. I can't think of one. So I don't see that changing in the general election. And it's been consistent. It's been consistent since the idiot was elected. The idiot's just gotten worse. He's not going to get any better. It's not going to change. So I don't really care how much money they throw at their awful candidates, and how much they're in essence throwing money at Donald Trump, and he's toxic. So that's number one. Number two, as I have spent my career since the idiot was elected trying to fight fire with fire, using the internet, social media as a tool, like the Republicans have been doing for over a decade now, to push pro-democracy talking points, using mockery and shaming Republicans as an effort, as a tool to push back on them, taking everything they say, and instead of saying we can't cover everything, using everything they say, taking every corrupt action that they engage in, using all of that as political, rhetorical weapons to get the truth out and to do my part to save democracy, fighting fire with fire, right? Which started with no more going high. We go lower than they go, right? I've been actively doing that. And the Democratic Party it took a while, but starting with Gavin Newsom, shortly after the Village Idiot took the president, because I started saying to do this immediately after Kamala lost the election. Gavin Newsom caught on, shortly after the idiot was inaugurated, and he showed everybody. I didn't have the reach, so I really couldn't do it, but Gavin showed everybody that you fight fire with fire. You fight these idiots, you call them idiots, and then you fight these idiots with the words that they say and the tools that they use. And I'd like to see There are plenty of rich Democrats. Plenty of us. I mean, I'm not a rich Democrat yet, but I hope to be one. And I hope for you to become a rich Democrat. But plenty of us who are not millionaires yet, there are plenty of us who are millionaires. It's not just Mark Cuban. There are billionaires who are Democrats. And this is why I frequently talked about during this Trump administration, no matter where you are socioeconomically and no matter how bad you feel financially, one of my goals is to encourage you to utilize this awful time as an opportunity, no matter whether you're 18 or 88, as an opportunity to build and achieve your own wealth. Defy their efforts. Defy their efforts to keep you poor. If you can do it, invest in the stock market. Take advantage of them cheating. You're not cheating, they're cheating. But you could still benefit from it, right? Whatever it is. You want to start a business? Start your business now. But build wealth, because wealth will afford you the opportunity to fight with your dollars, not just your voice. And that's what we need, because we're never going back to a time, unfortunately, unless there's a full revolution. We're never going back to a time where money doesn't matter in politics. Unless, of course, there's something big happens. So my belief is that let's use these campaign finance, these abhorrent campaign finance rulings by the Supreme Court, starting with Citizens United up until today, and let's fucking use them. Let's get rich Democrats to invest in big super PACs. I mean, it's not like they're not doing it, but we're not doing it as well as the Republicans are doing it. Let's get our Elon Musks. Let's get our ideological Mark Cuban. Stop being such a fucking down the middle. I know you partnered with the village idiot Donald Trump to get your, with your pharmaceutical business, and I get that you're trying to help as many people as you can, and I believe it. I don't think Mark Cuban is doing this to be political. I think he's doing it to try to be apolitical, but you're still fucking political. And democracy's still on the line. So you could still invest with that piece of shit, or partner with the government that happens to be that piece of shit now, and still hammer the fuck out of them. Fund everything. Fund super PACs. Give my organization that I'm a part of, Chorus, give them $100 million. Give them $100 million. Donate $100 million to them, so that they can fund a generation of creators like myself. The way that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all the rest of these creeps funded these right-wing lunatics who are these white nationalist neo-Nazi morons now who have millions of followers. Make it so every creator in my cohort can receive $100,000 a year stipend for 2 years while we massively build up these huge communities that tell the truth, that are about democracy. So we're not scrimping by trying to fight the good fight. Do it. And I think I think it can happen, and I think it will happen. I think it's time to turn. Hey, Irish Aggie. To turn these god-awful decisions that the Supreme Court has created to be able to, in essence, buy elections, turn it around on them. And I absolutely want to see that happen, and I do think it's going to happen. I think Democrats are waking up, and I think wealthy Democrats, we're going after them, not in a bad way. Chorus just did. I did a. I don't mean going after them like trying to insult them or anything. I mean like going after the donors to try to get them to donate, to try to get them to save democracy, not by giving just Hakeem Jeffries a donation so that he can do a little bit, but giving all of us the resources we need to do everything. Chorus just did they just had a collaboration with Lingua Franca, who is a fashion designer of very, very high-end clothes. And she just did a full line based on, there's influencers who you probably know, Brian Taylor Cohen, Politics Girl. I'm trying to think of some of the other big names that are a part of it. Those are just two of the biggest names that I can think of. But a ton of us, and I know these people now, right? And they use those people. They use those people to inspire high-end clothing items that have messages that these creators have come up with, pro-democracy messages, and they're selling these pieces for $250, $300 for a beautiful cashmere sweater. Now, I'm not going to buy that. Maybe you're not going to buy that. Maybe you will if you're comfortable and you can afford. If you're comfortable and you can afford it, please do. Go to linguafranca.com or whatever her website is. Look her up, and I'm going to make a push for it here. Go to Lingua Franca and go to the Chorus collection and buy something because it supports the work that we're doing, all of us that we're doing. And you're going to hear more and more about Chorus. I can tell you that. There's a lot I can't tell you yet, but you're going to be hearing more and more and more about Chorus in the months and certainly in the years to come. It's evolving into a force to be reckoned with politically. So keep an eye out for that too. But the point that I'm making is that collaboration, which seems like Democrats would be too afraid of that because we would be worried that the base would get mad at us because the base would be like, what the fuck? You're telling us that Donald Trump is fleecing the middle class. He's trying to institutionalize poor people. He's destroying immigrants and trying to suck everything out of them. And now you're telling us to buy $350 fucking sweaters. You out of your goddamn mind, Mitch? But it was a bold and ballsy move because what it was saying was, look, we are here. We're part of these communities that are being fleeced. We get it. But we're also not afraid to ask the people who have means to step the fuck up now. And if you're not willing to donate to pro-democracy organizations and you have to get something for it, get yourself a sweater. Instead of going to fucking Bergdorf, well, Bergdorf is gone, right? But Saks or wherever and buying your shit, leave one or two things out and buy it from Lingua Franca and support democracy. So I bring all this up in reference to the Supreme Court decision because I don't feel that it's all gloom and doom. I can see in my own world, and I believe, maybe I'm naive, but I believe I see other Democrats, pro-democracy Democrats, who are going to step forward and who are going to start to take advantage of this corrupt system that the Supreme Court has thrust upon us and are going to use it against Republicans and will help crush whatever's left of MAGA in 2028. And then when you get back in power and you have a supermajority in the Senate and you have a majority in the House and you have a Democratic president, you can engage in Supreme Court reform, whether that means packing the court or putting term limits or something else to stop the fucking madness and the lunacy. And you can pass legislation to right the ship. You can pass legislation to get rid of Citizens United, to take the money out of politics because it is corruptible and it is corrupted. So, anyway, can you put the link up? Yes, Lacey. Let me find it here. Hang on. Hang on. Don't go away, guys. Okay, where is our collection? Let me find it. Collaborations, there we go. And okay, here is the website. Let me just, I think I've got it up now. Let me just show it to you and I'm going to put the link. Here's the link. And, if you see, these are, some of these creators, I know all these creators now, which is pretty cool because I still fanboy, most of them. I can't believe I'm like in this, like, I can't believe that a lot of these people are friends of mine now, and them in a program with, these people who you probably know. I'm sure you're familiar with Politics Girl. I'm sure you're familiar with Brian. You may or may not be familiar with some of these other creators, but I know you know those two. Let me see if there's anybody else here that's like super, you know, super Sam. A lot of you might know. He's a huge creator. Maybe some of you don't. Sonia, if you don't know Sonia, you need to. I mean, all of these creators you need to know. But Sonia, if you don't know her, she is remarkable. She does mostly, go to her Instagram, and she does rediscovering Black recipes. And she Now I know you're like, what does that have to do with politics? But she infuses politics. So she creates, first of all, she has this like, her presentations are beautiful. I know sometimes you see me come on social media looking like the schlub of the week. Sonia, never. High production. Her, her work is beautiful. It's visually stunning. Like just to see her visuals is, I'm singing all their praises, but Sonia is one of my favorite creators right now. You see this visually stunning presentations that she does, and she shows you these in a way that only she can, these recipes, these bringing these Black recipes back to life in this visually incredible way. And it's filled, it's obviously cultural content, but it is complete with imperative political messaging. So if you're not familiar with Sonia, I want you to follow her. You might know Tim. He's a pretty popular, he's a pretty popular creator. Of course, I'm just trying to think who else is it really well known. Where is she? Hope Waltz is Tim Waltz's daughter. So, think of what that family's been through. So anyway, that's this is and I'm getting one of these shirts. I can't afford to buy one right now, but we had a little contest for when this first happened, like when the collection first went live, and I was able to get one of my posts in quickly enough to be one of a few of us that won one of these shirts. So I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm pretty fucking excited because I'm going to be honest with you. I'll never buy a $300 shirt. I just can't bring myself to do it. But I can't wait to get it because that's going to be cool. Anyway, guys, and again, this is just one type. The reason I'm bringing all of this up, let me just come back here. Hang on. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is not to prosecute the case for wealth. I believe personally that wealth is a good thing, but it's to bring up the case that the Supreme Court decision. I fully expect that not in the 2026 election, but maybe to a limited extent, but come 2028, I think we're going to see this backfire on Republicans in a big way, and I think we're going to see Democrats kind of wake up. And I don't know if Chuck Schumer, the House Minority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, and Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, are going to survive politically in this. I don't know if once Democrats win control of the House and the Senate, if they're going to remain the leaders. I don't know if they're going to be the people to lead us into this new world that we're heading into. but we'll see. And I sure as hell don't know if Ken Martin, the chair of the DNC, who I mean, the only thing you can say about him is pathetic, with rare moments of success. He's just not. He's just the DNC is just he's just not the guy for the job. He should. When was the last time you saw Ken Martin? I would bet. I would argue that probably most of you don't even know what he looks like. And you remember during previous when what's his name? Who was the DNC chair? I can't think of his name. The last very, very effective one for the Democrats, Howard Dean. Do you remember during an election when you never was there ever an election season? Was there ever a time when you didn't know Howard Dean? Those of us that are old enough to remember him, you always know him. He never disappeared. He was always out in the open. And then we had after Dean, I can't remember the guy's name, but again, incredibly ineffective. We saw him. If anybody can think of his name, let me know. I can't think of it. We saw him sometimes. His name will pop into my head. And look at the Republicans. They're the same thing. I mean, Trump basically is the RNC chief now for all intent and purposes. He's taken out Lara Trump, that dingbat, and, but if you remember, Michael Steele, for those of you, again, that are old enough to remember when Michael Steele is now an MSNBC host, I think he's a weekend host, maybe a weekday host now. But there was never, Michael Steele was so effective as a Republican National Committee chair. My God, you never didn't know who he was if you were paying attention to politics. He was on every news station, where the fuck I don't care about the Republicans because Donald Trump is basically the RNC chief now, but where the fuck is Ken Martin? Nobody even, you don't see him. You don't know who he is. Nobody cares. I don't want to get going on that. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today, my friends. Thank you for joining me. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one live at a time. Keep an eye on my vertical socials for today. I'll be posting this in a little while. If please like and subscribe if you're here on YouTube. If you're here on Substack, if you're here on Twitch, please, like and subscribe or join. I don't have a single follower on Twitch yet, so be the first. Yay! Let's get one. Hey, sorry, Catherine. You caught the absolute tail of the tail end. I'm sorry about that, Catherine. The recording will be up in a little bit, though. I'll get that up there. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. Much love to you all. The Supreme Court decision was better today. Was good. One was good. The other's not so much, but we're going to be okay. I promise. We're going to be okay. I love you guys. All right, so let's head out one at a time. YouTube, you're first. Okay, and YouTube has left the building. Twitch, thank you, Twitch. Twitch has left the building, and Substack. See you guys soon.